today we're going to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. Every problem looks like this. Solve an equation that has x squared to the 1x squared in it. This technique will solve it. Now you might recall factoring. We've done factoring, right? Factoring works sometimes as long as it's factorable, but if it doesn't factor, then it won't work that way. So what we want to do first is put the equation in x squared plus bx plus c order. And we want to move the constant to the other side and leave a gap. Okay, so start off here, and then whatever the constant is, that's the c, move it to the other side, leave a gap. Okay, so what I'm meaning is this. You'll put x squared plus bx gap equals negative c. C moves over, changes the sign, right? So that's what happens. Leave a gap means leave something right here. And what is used to fill in the gap is this exact object here. Now, a lot of people see that like, I don't know how to do with that. Whatever b is, half of it first, and then you take it to the second power. For example, b is 8. What's half of 8?
4.
And 4 squared is?
16.
So you do plus 16 plus 16. Add it to both sides. If b is 2, half of 2 is?
1.
1 squared is?
1.
Add it to both sides. If b is 5, half of 5 is?
2.5.
5 halves. Square it, you get 25 fourths. Add it to both sides. Fractions are better than decimals. All right? So, that's how we're going to do these. All right, every single time, b is either going to be even, which is easy, divide by 2, square it. If it's odd, leave as a fraction, square it, and you'll get what you get. You'll factor the left, add the right. We'll deal with factoring the left. It's really simple. We're creating a perfect square trinomial. Adding the right is just a matter of adding two numbers. You square root both sides, put a plus minus on the right-hand side, and then solve for x. So that's the whole process there. That's completing the square. And it works 100% of the time. If it's 1x squared, this technique works. If it's not 1x squared, there's one extra step you have to throw in there. So, it says solve x squared plus 6 equals negative 10x by completing the square. So again, the technique that we're using is called completing the square. Tomorrow's going to be called the quadratic formula. In the homework, they're going to say use this technique, use that technique. Please use the technique they asked on the homework. On the test, I'll just say solve. You can pick your favorite one. All right? So I don't care which one you use when it comes time to do the test, but on homework, try both. First step, create the proper order. X squared plus 10x plus 6 equals 0. So 10x moves to the left, becomes positive. X squared and 6 are already on the left, they stay positive. 0 is left on the right-hand side. Every single problem, as I copy it out of my book onto my paper, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to write this down, I'm going to just go ahead and rearrange it. It's just a matter of moving things around, changing signs. Okay, step 2. Leave x squared plus 10x right where it's at. Leave yourself some space, equals, and then move the 6 across, becomes negative 6. Step 3. The number in front of x is b. It doesn't matter about sign because you're going to square it. You always do plus, plus, plus. All right? Half of 10 is?
5.
And 5 squared is?
25.
25. So the magic number, we'll call it, is 25. You have to add it to both sides. All right? And again, to get that number, it's just whatever this number is. Half of it's 5. 5 to the second power, 25. You're going to add a perfect square to both sides each time. Step 4. It says factor the left-hand side. Now, I said factor the left-hand side is easy. It always creates a perfect square trinomial. So you're going to get a binomial squared as the factored form. To factor this trinomial up here, it's real simple. You take the square roots of the two end objects. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 25 is 5. And whatever signs in front of the x term goes in between them. If you do steps 1, 2, and 3 correctly, that's how it always factors. If you wanted to test it out, if I did x plus 5 times x plus 5, you don't have to do this, don't write this down. But if I FOIL this, what's x times x?
X squared.
And then 5x plus 5x is?
10x.
And 5 times 5 is?
25.
See there? Factors, right? So we're creating perfect square trinomial. This take half of this number and square it deal makes a perfect square trinomial every time. So square root, sine, parentheses, squared. Every single time, always works. The right-hand side is whatever it is. What's negative 6 plus 25? 19. Okay? Just use your addition facts. Step 5. Square root both sides. Put a plus minus in front of the square root symbol. So, the square root of x plus 5 squared is just x plus 5. The square root of 19 is? I have no idea. So I'm going to leave the square root of 19, plus or minus goes in front of that. And once you do all that stuff, you're down to x to the first power. Solving for x just means we put this over here. Always put the number in front of the plus or minus symbol. So negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 19 is the answer to the problem. Now, had I tried factoring that, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 plus 3 is not 10, 1 times 6 is 6, 1 plus 6 is not 10. It doesn't factor, but there's still solutions. There's still answers to the problem. Try this out. If I typed in negative 5 plus the square root of 19, and I hit store x, what it tells the calculator to do is this. Evaluate this, and then anytime I use x, type x, that's what I'm going to get. So that's what that equals, negative 0.641101065. If I hit x, it's that number, right? So that's what I told the calculator. Evaluate this, call it x, now anytime I hit x, it's that number. If I type in x squared plus 10x plus 6, what should it equal? X squared plus 10x plus 6 should equal 0, right? And it does. Alright, so that's what we're finding. We're finding solutions to the problem that we can't find just by basic factoring. Alright, if I tried the other answer, negative 5 minus the square root of 19, and I'm going to store that as x now. It's negative 9.358898944. And if I type in my x squared plus 10x plus 6, you can see that that also equals 0. So it's very easy to check the answer. You just figure that out and then just replace x with those numbers. You should get 0 out. But again, that's all completing the square is. Set up the proper structure, get the constant on the other side, complete the square, half of that number squared added to both sides, factor, add, square root, plus or minus, move the 5 over, change the sign. Always put it in front of the plus or minus when you write your final answer.